Good morning, everyone. This is Rick Storlie, new home sales coach, and we're back for part 2 of our building a culture of growth here with Dr. G. This is as I mentioned, the second part in our program of a 3-part series. The first part we focused on building a strengths first culture. And now we're moving on to the 5 essentials of a strengths first leadership team. So a couple of things to look for today is, number one, is this is the next piece of the puzzle. So after you've done your strengths first and partner up opportunities with your leadership team, then we move on to the 5 essentials of a team. And then we're going to come back here for part 3, and that's going to be the strategic planning piece of it. So very much a methodical steps here in building that growth culture for your home building organization. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. G and let him get started on the program. Good morning, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here with us and looking forward to taking you through the 5 essentials of a team. If you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, this is just a little bit of a twist on that to put it in the positive, provide some resources. And I have shared with Rick some resources that he'll have out there for you, from conflict management surveys that you can take, quizzes that you can use, different other resources that you can tap into to help you to continue to build this positive culture that is team-based, that is strengths-based, and that helps you in every facet of your company or business as you are out there doing the work that you're doing, whether you are working internally or you're working externally with other partners and other groups with which you may be contracting and doing business with. So just a pleasure to be here with you today. Always an honor, so appreciate this time. So we'll get this going here. And again, just a little bit of a background slide for you. Again, just a Partner2Learn. Our group is a group that works with strengths first. So again, we take you through Clifton Strengths to help you understand who you are as a unique individual and the partner up opportunities that are there. Our tagline really is, we want you to take the term weakness out of your vocabulary and replace it with the term partner up opportunity. Who's a good partner on this project, in this team, in everything that I'm doing? And we've worked 2,500 plus individuals through that, as well as well over 400 teams through the Strengths First, as well as the 5 essentials of a team training that we're working on right now. And then we also then go into strategic planning, which we'll be talking about in just a couple of weeks with you, because that's the next step. Once you're healthy as an individual, healthy as a team, you're really ready to do some serious strategic planning. And then there's executive coaching and different things that come after that. So that's a little bit of who we've served.
And Dr. G, I just want to mention as well that if you are out there that you've heard of the EOS model or Entrepreneur Operating System, that's really what you based all this on. And you've done, I think you said, over 300 implementations of EOS as a EOS facilitator. So you're obviously very well versed in the great program that is. And what you're showing here is things that you can do in addition to your EOS implementation to help make it a smoother and more productive implementation.
Absolutely. Spot on with that. And because, again, when you go through the EOS model, they're going to give you 6 characteristics, 6 areas to really focus on. And one of the most important areas, the one that infiltrates every area, is the people component. And the stronger the people component, the stronger every component on which you're working. So hence the pieces that we've added in here prior to going into that strategic plan to make sure that the people component is really rock solid to take the organization forward. Yep, exactly. All right, we'll move on. So again, today's goal, that you're able to build and grow your leadership team so that you can better seize opportunities, meet challenges with a united team that maximizes strengths. So we're going to take a look at a couple of slides. And you might think that you're a united team, and as a united team, we're going to see everything the same way. We're going to see everything from the same perspective. Everything is going to be just absolutely clear and the same for everyone on the team. But when we take a look at the next slide, just, as you look at it, just shout out the first thing that you see, the first thing that comes to mind as you look at this picture.
I see the young lady.
All right, so Rick sees the young lady. I automatically see the old lady. So again, if you're looking at this, you can see, some will see the young lady who's looking off to the distance with a feather in her hair, the small nose, the small eyelash above the nose, chin going down. Others will see the old lady staring at them right in the front, which is, again, the big nose with the curl, the mouth, and I can put my arrow there, the mouth right here, the nose right here, and the eye here looking at you with a shawl over her head. So some will see the young lady, some will see the old lady, some will see both. So again, different perspectives potentially even on our own team. Same thing here with these pictures. So you've probably been in these situations before where you've seen a perfectly timed picture where you have a gymnast who looks like her foot is her head. Or if you look at the man with the leg on the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the perspective that's there. And then when you look at the elephant, if you were to cover up the legs, you'll see 4, maybe you see 6. How many legs does this elephant really have? And the whole point with this is that we are unique individuals many times with our own perspective on a situation. But we need to come together as a team and bring that perspective into alignment. You're going to hear me talk about alignment quite a bit today. Alignment is key. Alignment is when we have all of our arrows going in the same direction together. And I'll mention that again later. So right now, Rick, I know that you know your clients, you know the people that you're working with well, and there are different facets of their teamwork that come in. So again, maybe different teams in their own organization or people that they have to work with. What do you see out there as you're working with your clients? How would you see these different perspectives in the different teams with which they're working?
Well, okay, so we start out, if we just follow our sales process, production process, warranty process. So we're going to start with sales and design first, and then we move into production as we build our homes or we remodel our homes. And then finally, there's an after sale or warranty component follow-up. And where I see as far as a disconnect on a team is normally the handoff between sales and design or design and production. In other words, sales says one thing and then production says another thing, and so the customer is confused. Also from the handoff from production to where they're closing the home or the project and handing off to warranty. If there's leftover items that don't get completed, they ultimately spill into warranty. Warranty says one thing, production says something different. It's dysfunction, and it dramatically you lose value in the eye of your customer because trust is broken. And then there's a lot of infighting that goes with that as well, a lot of finger pointing that goes back and forth.
Nope, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. And that's what we're going to hit on today is we're going to talk about some things such as trust and how to build this team structure across all levels, across all areas. So let's take a look here. First, Rick, I'm just going to ask you, put you on the spot. What do you see as the top 3 qualities or characteristics of a highly functioning leadership team?
Okay. Well, first, I already mentioned it. Trust
Yes.
is number 1. Number 2 is transparency. And then number 3, I would say, is taking responsibility.
And out of all of those, what would you say probably is the most important? Would you go back to trust with that?
I would, because it's a foundation. I mean, the way I look at it is a foundation. In other words, if I trust my salesperson is going to say the right thing, if I'm a production manager, or if as a salesperson, I trust my production manager because I know that he or she is going to follow with what I'm saying. I think that's by far the most important. And if trust is there, obviously conflicts are going to come up. I know that I have a trusting relationship, and so I can resolve those conflicts. If trust isn't there, I might have periods of good behavior, but ultimately it's a matter of when that castle is going to come crumbling down, not if.
Well, that's a great way to put it. A great way to put it that you're going to have periods of good behavior. It's not necessarily going to be the true behavior that drives an organization forward, but you're at least in that situation not causing issues at that time or problems. But that's not a healthy team. And again, we're going to talk today about the fact that a healthy team should have positive conflict. And we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. So excellent. With the idea of trust, here you go. Here's what we're going to be looking at today for a healthy team, is the fact that a healthy team will have these 5 characteristics. Trust, and we're going to teach it as vulnerability-based trust. So how to be vulnerable to create that trust. And then positive conflict. We teach a formula for positive conflict, MV squared plus I squared. And again, we're going to talk about this. Every healthy team must have conflict. So when we look at this, MV squared plus I squared, it's healthy conflict is centered around mission, vision, values, focused around ideas and issues. And then true commitment can take place to the mission and to the team. accountability to one another, and we teach accountability different than anyone else out there. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then a focus on team results, not what I did, but what we did. So that's a little precursor to the areas that we're going to be going into. At this point, Rick, anything else to add before we move into those specific areas?
I was just looking at your positive conflict. I mean, those are all EOS terms. My core purpose, my vision, my core values, ideas or to-dos, and obviously we have our issues list that we work through on a weekly basis. So I like where this is going.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick. And let's get into it. So again, Gino Wickman, the author of Traction, EOS Worldwide, stated this quote. He says, "As goes your leadership team, so goes the rest of your organization." So the healthier, the stronger your leadership team, the healthier, the stronger your entire organization and what you're producing. So again, why build healthy conflict? Why build stronger teams? So again, we've hit on that a little bit here, but again, here's some just key points that help to synthesize that for us. And again, I won't read them all, but teamwork is key, means to an end. Teams achieve things that are too big and complex to reach through individual efforts. We all need our teams. We need the other people around us. So again, the interaction, cooperation of two or more things produce combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. So the team working together is going to get us more. And here it is. So Patrick Lencioni sets this up as a pyramid with.
Oh, Scott, you muted yourself by accident.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Moving my picture around so that we can see the screen. So again, right here, what we see, Lencioni will put this into, lack of trust, lack of conflict, all of these different things and what manifests. We'll talk about that a little bit. But how we teach this is really, these are the 5 essential pieces that every team must have. So let's take a look at that. Oops, went too fast. And that's with the foundation of trust. If your foundation of trust is weak, is non-existent, here's what happens. The whole pyramid, the whole team comes crumbling down. And again, that trust is that foundational piece. As you said before, Rick, the most important piece to that healthy team is that trust factor. And it definitely
isn't it a bit ironic too, if you go back and look at that slide, you talk about organizational teams and leadership teams and other teams within an organization, that they mirror and mimic a marriage. In other words, the foundation of a marriage isn't trust. You're not going to be able to resolve conflict. You're going to have accountability issues. I mean, it's like, it's the core for every relationship, not just organizational relationships.
Absolutely. Yep. That I couldn't put it better. And I've done premarital counseling, marital counseling, and the 2 things that I make sure to share with couples and families, because I think this is a great model for building a strong family too, are strengths, understanding my individual strengths, my spouse's strengths, and then understanding again, this pyramid really of being able to have trust, to have positive conflict as a couple. There's always going to be conflict in a family, but we want it to be positive, and that's all right. We can have disagreements, but again, we'll teach you that formula and talk about that formula in just a little bit. Anything else, Rick?
No.
All right. So here's just a brief definition of trust. Confidence among team members that their peers' intentions are good, so you can be vulnerable with one another. That everyone's intentions are good. No one's out to harm anyone or hurt the company or hurt other individuals, but they're for good, so we can then be vulnerable. And I'll tell you what vulnerability means in a little bit. This cartoon here, there's not necessarily vulnerability here, and there's not necessarily a high level of trust. As the one penguin says, why do I have to go first? And the rest are, there's no I in team, Dave. And maybe sometimes that's how you have felt, Rick, or others on this webinar have felt, is that they are standing alone on an island jumping into some dangerous waters. That's not true vulnerability-based trust. So let's get into what trust really means. So every section we're going to go through just some key components that define really what trust is, what positive conflict, etc. And here's the first slide that really sets the stage and says that true trust on a team, here's what you're going to see. You're going to acknowledge and tap into strengths because you recognize the need for others. Truly know and appreciate one another. You know each other personally and professionally. You possess vulnerability-based trust, and I'll talk about what that means in just a little bit, that vulnerability piece. Willingly ask for help, admit weaknesses and mistakes, and make and receive prompt apologies when you do something that may negatively or not so positively, at least, impact the team. So those are the key foundational pieces that make up true trust on a team. So now every section, trust, conflict, etc., we're going to talk about 3 tasks. So the 3 tasks in order to build a foundation of trust that I'm going to ask each team to do and think about is 1, demonstrate leadership integrity and vulnerability. 2, carry out multiple follow-throughs. And 3, create shared experiences. So now let's dig into what these mean. So the first one, demonstrate leadership integrity and vulnerability. So it starts with the leader and then trickles out to the team. So the leader themselves must be vulnerable. And vulnerable means that you're willing to basically say, I made a mistake. Vulnerability means that you can let people see you sweat. There's this old adage of don't let them see you sweat. That's just so wrong. That adage puts extra pressure on people. And when I was first going into my background being education, when I was first becoming a principal, that was something that mentors tried to communicate to me. Don't ever let them see you sweat. Don't ever admit mistakes. Don't ever say you were wrong. It's going to make you look weak. And it's just the opposite. A strong leader does these things in order to be vulnerable, to create trust, and to truly create strength on a team. So again, being vulnerable is that ability to let people see you sweat. It's recognizing the need for other strengths. I can't do it by myself. That we will then admit wrongs, mistakes, and interpersonal shortcomings. We'll seek forgiveness, understanding if necessary. I can't tell you how powerful that was with my students and my faculty in the past. If I would come in and say, you know, I really messed up yesterday. I was not on the top of my game, had some other things going on, didn't really focus on you all, and I am so sorry. That created an amazing trust and confidence in my leadership, being able to do that. It showed strength. And again, that's what we want to do, is be vulnerable to help others see the real strength that is there through the team, through each other. Request help, let people again know you sweat, and set that ego aside. So those are really the ways to create that integrity and vulnerability-based trust. And then the second task is carry out multiple follow-throughs. So what that really means is that we follow through on what we say. So do what you say you're going to do. And we use a little saying called say, do, co. And in each section, we're going to have some tools, some resources. This is one of the resources. If you can get this into the culture of your team, say, do, co, which means say what you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And then the co is communicate if you can't. That's the key. So rather than coming into a meeting and saying, I'm so sorry I didn't get this done, it is you're communicating beforehand and saying, my children, you know, here's what happened at home. We've had a really tough week. Can I get some help with this? Communicating if I can't is, you know, everything seemed to come at once. I thought I could get this done. So if you communicate ahead of time, it sets the stage, 1, to show your vulnerability, and 2, to be able to handle it ahead of time so we don't just come in and catch people off guard. So a little thing like say, do, co, if you can build that into your team culture, can be really powerful. Say what you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and communicate if you can.
And for all the resources you reference here, Scott, there'll be a link right below the video here where you can download those to incorporate them into your own team building.
It's terrific. Thanks, Rick. And again, so the next piece here is being then responsible in the small, large things. So when you carry out multiple follow-throughs, whether it's a small task or a large task, we want to continue to follow through, take it to the finish line. And again, design opportunities for success. Set your team members up for success. Set yourself up for success. Do not give people the impossible to do. So if there's things that you struggle with and have trouble with, let's talk about that as a team and figure out the best way to tackle that as we set each other up for success.
So Scott, that to me, that goes back to what we started with, which was understanding our strengths, our team strengths. And when I know that what somebody's strengths are, I'm not going to ask them to do a project that's going to focus on where they're not strong. I'm going to give that project to somebody that does have those strengths. And I'm assuming then, you know, like you said in the first video, which also we'll have a link for right below here, if I'm working within my strengths, I use 20% of my efforts for 80 to 90% of my results. Did I say that correctly?
Exactly right. Yep, 10 to 20% effort to get 80 to 90% results. So really setting people up for success, as you're referencing here, is working from their strengths and understanding them. Absolutely. Other thoughts?
That's all for that one.
All right. So then again, this will be in your resource file, and it'll be on this webinar, the PowerPoint here that'll be provided for you too. But again, some of the ways to really build trust on a team. So again, here's some of the resources. Is for every meeting that you have written right on the meeting agenda is that you have meeting norms. And these are just some sample meeting norms. Like on there, we will say, use the tool again, say, do, co. We will ask questions when in doubt. Be present at all meetings. Turn off phones. I work with a group who has people all across the world. They have 8 people in 8 different countries, and they have meeting norms that we're all going to be on headsets. We will mute ourselves when we're not speaking, again, just to make that meeting go positively. And what that does is it sets up trust right away, rather than people feeling like they're being picked on and saying during the middle of a meeting, could you please mute yourself? Or could you please? It just sets the standard, sets a level playing field for everyone. And again, helps to build that trust. So meeting norms is one way to build some trust. Other ways, create shared experiences. Define your shared experience. Keep goals in mind. Keep them simple but continuous, and recognize the value. So a shared experience could be something as doing an escape room as a team, going and working together. Can we escape? A shared experience could be just having a meal together. A shared experience could be reading a book and then sharing thoughts and ideas on that book. So again, shared experiences do not have to be complicated. As a matter of fact, they should be very simple, but they should be continuous. I don't think you have to do one every week, but one a quarter and things like that. And if you ever go to the level 10 meeting, or the meeting that we've designed very close to that, which is called the fuel meeting, you have what is called a segue in the beginning. And the segue is where you share something personal with everyone. And that's a shared experience every week or every month. Well, however often you meet, the recommendation is every week, but you share something personal and how you're doing. We have also encouraged share your strengths, how you have used your strength, and how maybe you've seen someone else use their strength since the last time that you met. But those are little shared experiences that keep you really together as a team, growing as a team.
You know, Scott, one of the things I was thinking of is we used to do a once a month, well, 2 things: a once a month all hands on deck meeting where we got everybody in the company, including like laborers for job sites, into a meeting. We broke bread together, had it was usually a lunch. We would recognize employees during that meeting as a shared experience. And then on top of that, we would do a quarterly trade meeting. So we go out to our suppliers and our subcontractors. We'd invite them to a breakfast. Same thing, break bread with them at breakfast and recognize their valuable input and efforts for the organization, and then just give them like a quarterly update on where we're at and where we're going, and how we're getting there. It's very, very powerful because everyone did feel connected, and they was able to have that one-on-one communication, as well as see the recognition, and feel appreciated by the leadership.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, those are great examples. And others have done different things. If your company can afford to take people on a cruise to the Cayman Islands in the middle of winter, while we live here in Minnesota, that's great, but it doesn't have to be that extravagant. It can be very simple things, just simple communications and ways to lift people up that way. Excellent. Here are some other trust building activities and some of these shared experiences. You can have that annual retreat. You can have a personal histories exercise, which you'll find through the website. If you just do a web search for Lencioni personal histories exercise, that's where you share something personal with the whole group around the table that maybe no one's ever heard before. The team effectiveness exercise is really, once you build some trust, this is where you share something about every person around the table that is really good for the team, and then something about every person that kind of hinders the team. And that's a pretty powerful, effective tool to try to, again, focus in on strengths and say, maybe I should partner up here. Maybe I should share this with others. But again, you have to have some trust base level to be able to do that. So again, 360-degree feedback, getting information from your peers, from those above you, those below you. It helps to really focus yourself in on how to grow, how to be a vulnerable leader. So just some tools there and pieces that you can grab and take to help you build trust, that foundation piece. So in summary with trust, if you want to build trust, on the left side of the screen, you will see this. 3 trust builders. As each team member consistency follows through. So consistent follow through. Number 2, each team member speaks constructive, edifying words. And 3, each team member acts for the greater good. You're going to build trust. If you want to destroy trust, here's the quickest way. Number 1, don't follow through. Use hurtful words and act selfishly. So again, we can see very clearly that left side, those 3 trust builders, is what we really want to focus in on. And it's not complicated to build trust, but it does take some time. And it means that the leader themselves have to be the leader who is vulnerable and who sets that stage.
Scott, you and I talked about accountability leading up to this program. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that when we hold our co-workers accountable, whether they're a direct report or somebody else, but when we hold them accountable, it actually is an empowering thing for them, because they feel like, hey, I am worthy enough of this task and to be held accountable for it. And if we don't hold them accountable, what we're more or less saying is, well, it was not that important in the first place, so not that big of a deal. That's sort of the subconscious message that we're giving to them. Do I have that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll dig deeper into 100% spot on, and we'll dig deeper into that when we get to the accountability piece of the puzzle here. But that is absolutely right. And we teach accountability. Partner2Learn teaches accountability different than anyone else. Accountability is the highest form of praise. So just as you said, when you hold someone accountable, what you're really saying is you are important and what you're doing is important. If you do not hold people accountable, what you're really saying is, yeah, you really don't matter, and what you're doing doesn't matter, because I'll just find someone else or I'll do it myself.
Sure, that's
So
absolutely
accountability,
okay.
that highest form of praise. And again, when we do that, we really, again, add to the pyramid here and to the strength of our team. Other comments or thoughts, Rick, or anything?
Mm-mm.
All right. So once we have that foundation of trust, now we can begin to grow through positive conflict. And I'm going to tell you this, every healthy team must have conflict. If you do not have conflict on your team, you are not a healthy team. And what you really have manifesting is artificial harmony. So when there's no conflict, what artificial harmony is, everyone nods their head in a meeting and says, yep, got it. And then they go in the parking lot and say, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Can you believe how terrible that was? So artificial harmony is that nodding of the head, but then going out and talking bad behind people's backs. So again, if we have positive conflict, people are heard, and we actually have true collaboration occurring, and we then can move to that next level of commitment. But let's take a look at what true positive conflict is. So 1, it's demonstrate passion and openness in team discussions. It's good to be passionate. Voice opinions, even at the risk of causing a disagreement. You're empowered. You're empowered in this environment to share opinions. You hold compelling meetings. So a compelling meeting is where you actually do have conflict, and you really discuss the important issues, not the ancillary pieces. So, Rick, just to put you on the spot here, what might be 3 barriers to healthy conflict on most leadership teams? What might be some of those barriers?
Well, I'm going to say inconsistency. We talked about trust from the boss, and it starts from the leadership down. But if I never know what sort of mood the boss is in, I'm not going to be one that's going to speak up and to talk about something that I may disagree with or question or what have you. I mean, it's like and I remember someone else, a facilitator, an EOS facilitator I worked with, saying that when you receive positive and negative comments from the boss, how incredibly impactful that is to the rest of the team. I mean, so much more impactful than if it's just a coworker, but it starts at the leadership there. So I'm going to say inconsistency from the boss, and not being vulnerable, always maybe critiquing but never giving that positive feedback. So that would be number 1 barrier, I'd say, was inconsistency. Number 2, I'm going to say lack of trust. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit on this one. And number 3, I'm going to say is that if somebody does throw ideas out there or challenges something, that if it's never a discussion point, in other words, it's my way or the highway, there is no collaboration. It's simply a dictatorship. So I'm going to go with those 3.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Those are very consistent with what a lot of people will say. There's other pieces out there that some will say fear of reprisal, fear of repercussions from it, that someone would come and attack them from it. So again, the list probably can go on, but absolutely, those are three things that can get in the way of positive conflict. So
And
again, we
just
want to knock those down.
a quick
Yes.
side note here, as far as positive conflict, I'm going to take this down as I'm working a model home. I'm a salesperson. I'm in a builder's model home. So I have a lot of visitors, especially during a special event to the model home. Majority of them are not going to buy from me. So I remember as a salesperson thinking like, how do I want to get something out of each and every visitor. So what I would do, Scott, if someone would walk in, is I would do a quick qualification. If I found out that they were not in the market for a new home, or at least in my community, my price point, I would simply say, can I ask a favor of you before you see the model home? And that was what I called the showstopper. And so, and they'd say, oh, sure, yeah, what is it? I'd say, would you do me a favor and please give me your brutally honest opinion on what you think that we could improve upon in the model home. And people were sort of taken aback, and they're like, oh, okay. So in other words, what I gave them permission to do was rip me, because I was thinking about it is that I don't want someone to go through my model home and have a good idea, and then I ask them, hey, what did you think? And they said, oh, it's beautiful. And they walk out the door and they say, to their friend they're with, boy, did you see how they did this or did that, or I would have done it this way. I wanted that feedback so I could incorporate that into improving our product or our offering.
Excellent, excellent. And it's inviting that conflict. That's exactly right. And let's take a look at some of the ways to invite that and to have that. So one, define and demonstrate positive conflict like you're talking about, inviting it. Organize for productive conflict and make meetings like a movie. All right. So, and make meetings like a movie usually catches people off guard. Kind of what does that mean? So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But here it is. Here's our formula again. Hit this right away in the beginning, but very clearly, positive conflict is always centered around this formula, MV squared plus I squared, which is positive conflict always centers on mission, vision, and values. Focuses then on issues and ideas, not personalities. It's the truth, not politics, just doing the right thing. And then the key part is encouraging that healthy conflict, like you said, inviting it. It's good to challenge each other with passion, emotion, and even frustration. And we know that the conflict that takes place stays in there. And then once we have that positive conflict and that open environment built on trust, then we get to true commitment where we can have some disunity within. But once we get to that next level, when we go outside to our constituencies, all they see is that agreement. So again, positive conflict, MV squared plus I squared, mission, vision, values, plus ideas and issues. And then produce the best possible solution in the shortest period of time. And also you want to hold to appropriate meeting times. When I was a very young principal, I had early Monday morning meetings. That was the dumbest thing ever. Nobody wanted to be there. They already were fretting about the week. They're coming off a weekend. It was just the worst time to have a meeting. So we were then able to we scheduled every other Friday. We would close the school down at 12 noon every other Friday to have that in-service meeting time. We would have food, we'd have drinks, we made it an event. We made it something that was then special, somewhere we could have positive conflict and get to real solutions rather than just getting together, getting everyone into a tizzy on a Monday morning and then sending them off. So we just had a stand-up meeting every Monday morning just to set the schedule for the week. And then every other Friday, we had our longer level 10 fuel meeting that took us into the true issues and the true positive conflict. And again, the goal is to stop those negative artificial harmony where you nod your head in the meeting and then go speak badly outside of it, those personal attacks. And then making meetings like a movie. It's really, again, just simply, you want to have exposition of the issue. What makes a movie exciting is either the romantic tension, it's the good versus evil, all of those things. In literature, it's man versus man, man versus nature. So again, you want that healthy conflict. That's what makes a meeting exciting. If you're just going into a meeting and running through an agenda, that's not exciting. That's not productive because you're really not knocking down those issues where you need to have that positive conflict. And again, you provide that real-time permission, you encourage it, you model it, you build to a climax, and you have following action, which leads to then conclusion and resolution. So another literary model that's out there that I just want to share with you here is simply this. Rather than think of this as a book, and these are how all books are written, according to this model, or at least most books that are that are the fiction books, etc., are written in this way. But think about this in your meeting. You have exposition, which means you expose the issue. Here's the issue we're facing. Then you have rising action, which is the conflict, back and forth, the debate, the mission, vision, values, issues and ideas being brought to the table, and you're going back and forth till you get to the climax where somehow, some way, you get to where there's a stated solution. Then the following action is who's going to carry out that solution, in what way, leading towards final resolution. And that's how we want to design the issues discussions, the positive conflict in our meetings. Is, again, what we encourage, just like the EOS model, is 60 out of your 90 minutes in a meeting, 2/3 of your meeting, should be centered around positive conflict around mission, vision, values, issues, and ideas. Mm-hmm. And if you use this format, expose it, have the debates, the discussion, lead to a solution, then the assignment of who's carrying out and doing what, so that you carry it to final resolution. Thoughts on that, Rick, or comments?
Well, one of the things that a tool that I used to use it years ago when I was leading sales meetings is I had we had a timekeeper and we had a gatekeeper. So the timekeeper was responsible for making sure the meeting stayed on time, and the gatekeeper was responsible for making sure we stayed on topic. And so now with EOS, we do our leadership meetings using the 90IO software, and they have a little tool in there, which is really cool, where the meeting's already broken down into that 2/3 issues, 1/3 is everything else, which is your segue in your data and, looking at your rocks and to-dos. And there's a little timer on there. And so, as we're going through our meeting, right on the screen is like, okay, we're out of time. We got to keep going and getting down to those issues. So you're actually having the resolution you're looking for, or you're getting somewhere on your issues. The most frustrating parts of meetings is where you come out of a 1.5 to 2 hour meeting and you look back and go like, what did we accomplish? And the answer too often is like, well, nothing or not enough for the amount of time that we put into that. So it's huge waste of resources when we put a bunch of people in the room and we don't get stuff resolved.
Yep, and the positive conflict really leads to the resolutions, leads to those solutions. Excellent. So again, every meeting must have conflict, like I've said. So some conflict resolutions tools and resources besides what I've already shown you, and these are included in the resource packet, would be a conflict resolution style quiz and or survey. The survey is more in depth and it creates greater discrepancy, meaning a greater clarity for who has the different conflict styles that you see there: competing, collaborating, compromising, accommodating, avoiding. All are needed, all are necessary, and when you understand your conflict management style and those of your team members, you can approach conflict in a much more positive way. So the tools that I would be recommending to bring to every meeting would be this pyramid. Again, the essentials pyramid, so that we have that trust, everything in front of us. I would be bringing our strengths from Clifton Strengths to every meeting, so we understand whose strengths are what and how those are working together. And then also the conflict resolution style for every person, so we understand how we're all going to approach conflict and where we might need different conflict styles for different meetings for different issues. Comments, questions, or thoughts on conflict in any way, shape, or form, Rick, or other thoughts before we move into commitment?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right, so then once we have trust and conflict, we can go into constructing commitment. And commitment, here's the simple definition for what commitment really is. So commitment is clarity about direction and priorities. You support group decisions, even if you initially disagreed. Discussion ends with clear and specific resolutions, calls to action. Members leave meetings confident that their peers are completely committed. The team follows through. So those are the key elements of true commitment on a healthy team. So when we look at that, let's break this apart into 3 tasks. Again, we want to achieve clarity and buy-in, bring debate to a conclusion, and truly commit to that decision. So the little cartoon there or picture on the bottom is the chicken was involved, the pig was committed. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go into a meeting and die or anything that way and turn into bacon or anything that way, but again, the goal is to have true commitment that we are there for each other no matter what. So the first task again, achieve clarity and buy-in. So you do that by hearing and considering and discussing, debating members' opinions. That goes back to that positive conflict. Tap into the collective wisdom, could put collective strengths of the group, and then build to a decision, not consensus and certainty. The rule of thumb is that 8 out of 10 times on a healthy team, you will have consensus. You'll have everyone agreeing. But those other 2 times, it's better to have any decision, even a wrong decision, rather than no decision. And the idea is really to fail forward. And I'll hit this a couple of times, but you fail, just think of failing forward. Rick, do you know why WD-40 is called WD-40?
I do not.
It is called WD-40 because the first 39 times they tried it, it failed. So it became water displacement, WD-40. And so again, the idea is don't think of failure as a terrible thing. Failure is the process of learning more, growing more, and doing things better. So again, building to a decision is much more important than consensus and pure certainty. You're never going to be 100% certain about everything. There's always going to be factors in that. So again, building to that decision. That builds commitment. And then again, bring debate to a conclusion. Make a decision despite uncertainty. And again, hit this before, avoid analysis paralysis, understand it could be wrong, and basically just say what's the worst that could happen. That's one of the resources. What's the worst case scenario? And then align team around the mission and vision. Everything always goes back to mission and vision. Remember, I talked about alignment before, is the fact that you want all your arrows going in the same direction. If you have 4 arrows and they're all going in different directions, what happens to the organization in the middle is it gets torn apart. It doesn't mean that the arrows are bad, but it gets torn apart because they're not all focused in the same direction. So that alignment is so key. And again, that's what the poised model that we have for strategic planning, EOS Worldwide, can do. It helps align those arrows once you're a healthy team. And then the bottom line is leaders make the final decision. Don't be afraid to do that. Make that final decision. I like how Gino Wickman puts it in his book. He says to leaders, don't be a weenie, make a decision.
So what it comes down to is that if I'm going through discussion, I can't get consensus, I'm getting to the end of the meeting, better for the leaders to make a decision then, or at least let the rest of the team know I'm going to do some more research and make a decision by such and such a time, versus to let it be an open or outstanding item.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, you could make a decision in a meeting by saying, like you just said, we need more information. So we're going to have a totally dedicated, what is called offline meeting to this singular topic, where we're going to come to resolution. So that could be a decision in and of itself, to say we don't have enough information, so we are therefore, but the key is don't just table things.
Yeah,
set a specific time to come back to it, call an offline meeting, which means it's dedicated to this one piece, and finalize at that time. Excellent. Other thoughts there, Rick, or other comments?
I'm just thinking of myself, being the actuator, the ready, fire, aim mentality, that I need to surround myself with more analytic people. So sometimes the best decision for me is to, like you said, to table it and go offline, get more information, and then make the decision. Because my initial inclination is always like, let's just make a decision and move on.
Yes, absolutely. So understanding your strengths, and you having activator, which is ready, fire, aim. You'd rather just get it moving and make mistakes along the way. Is that having that analytical person to provide some of that balance and some of those details is going to be powerful for you, and the same for others out there that maybe have similar situations. Excellent. Other thoughts, Rick, or comments?
No.
All right. I'm not going to read through the cartoon. That'll be in the slide. You can read that for yourself. But again, the key here is, the last thing is, then once you've made that decision, commit to it, which means you maximize clarity, which destroys the ambiguity. So you're very clear on who's doing what, to accomplish what, for what, etc. Breed confidence. Be confident as a team. We are going to succeed, and be confident that even if we don't succeed, we'll make it right. Seize the opportunities that come in front of you. Don't sit back on them. Grab onto them and run with them. Too often we lose opportunities because again of that indecision. And again, that really leads to that fourth point, which is avoid indecision. And there's a little story with that, and you'll see there that the pattern of indecision, here's what happens. Indecision is often caused by fear, then that leads to panic, and it leads ultimately to death. And now I'm not necessarily talking death of a person, but potentially death of a division, a good concept, a team, etc. So again, even an organization. And there's a real life example. A woman in upstate New York pulled too close to a railroad crossing, and the lights were dinging, the arm bar came down, and she's in between, too close to the tracks, and there's a man in a car behind her signaling, pull back, pull back, pull back. She got out of the SUV, looked at the situation, saw the arm bar down behind, inexplicably got back into the car, and the man is just screaming, pull back to her. Gets back into the car, inexplicably hits the accelerator, pulls forward. She herself is killed. The train is wrecked. Injuries and death occur on the train. So what happened in that particular situation is that this woman was very indecisive. She had indecision. Why did she have indecision? It was certainly caused by fear. She was afraid of what was going on, train coming, everything else. And then once that fear really set in, it led to panic, which means that she, instead of pulling backwards, hit the accelerator, pulled forward, and it led to death. Same thing happens in organizations. Same thing happens in teams. So again, really committing to that decision, avoid the indecision, move forward confidently as a collective. So just like in real life, be decisive, right or wrong, make a decision. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision. So let's not be that flat squirrel. Make that decision, move forward confidently. Anything to add there, Rick, or thoughts?
I'm just thinking oftentimes is that we're trying to bring a product to market, and we design and design and design, and we're trying to get it just perfect. And then we go back and we design and design and design and design. And it's like, no matter how much time and effort you put into trying to get the design just right, inevitably you're going to bring it to market. You're going to get feedback and go like, oh, how did we miss that? And you're going to make improvements as you go. So I remember going through the EOS implementation, the facilitator says, like, hey, shoot for 80%. So it's like, just get it 80% right where you think it's going to be, and then launch and go for it. Otherwise, it's just, like I said, your fear of making a mistake leads to paralysis, over-analysis, and then you end up dying. You never get it to market, and therefore, you never generate revenue for it. Or even worse is you don't get the feedback you need to improve it to where you can really get it up to 85, 90, 95%, being a great product.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. And again, it's really that rule of thumb, 80%, 8 out of 10 times, et cetera, and then just move forward.
By the way, this is issue number one for custom builders. You get somebody into custom design their own home, and the client cannot make a decision to save their life. And it just cycles and cycles and cycles, and they over design and change their mind, and they just cannot make a decision because of fear, like, oh, I'm going to make a mistake and then I'm going to regret it. It's issue number one with trying to get projects out the door to get started.
Excellent example, and very concrete example that way. So again, just make that decision. Indecision is going to be far worse, far worse. Excellent. Some resources that we'll be providing that are in there, a written resource here that you see on the right-hand side of the screen is Driving Business Solutions. This is where you have a nice pattern, so you clarify the issue using strengths. You'll see the different strengths for problem identification, strategic ideation, and election. And then number 2, you get team inputs. You discuss those. It's always centered around, again, mission, vision, values, ideas, and issues to head towards the resolution. And then the way forward, you tap into, again, problem-solving strengths so that you get solutions there. You tap into traction strengths to get that solution moving. And then you have just a nice catch-all at the bottom to assign those specific tasks so that nothing falls through the cracks. So that's just a nice handy tool to be able to use that way. And then build a communication plan too. Who do we need to cascade messages to? Who's going to tell who? If someone's not in your meeting, we always need to tell someone something. So who's going to do it and make that really intentional? And going back up to the very top one there, go ahead, talk as a group. What's the worst case scenario? What's the contingency plan? If this doesn't work, okay, we're out 2 days, we're out a little bit of money, but boy, if this works, it's going to take off. So again, build that worst case scenario analysis and potential contingency plan, but I would say still even more so focus on breeding that confidence and moving forward as a team.
It's a good tool. It's concrete steps for taking that issue into making them into to-dos with the corresponding action step. I like that.
Yeah, this tool really works well. Groups that are using this have come back to us and just thanked us very much for allowing them to have this concrete way to approach things. And it makes the situation much more objective than subjective. So now all of a sudden it's not about personalities and personal likes and dislikes, but it puts it into a very concrete way. Excellent. All right, so moving on, once you have that commitment, now we get to accountability, as you led us into before, Rick. Accountability, as we teach it, highest form of praise, but here's what builds into true accountability, that the team, the individuals value collective success more than individual. We don't let each other down. We willingly challenge each other in light, again, mission, vision, all of those things are held to the same, we're all held to the same high standards. And we openly address one another's deficiencies or unproductive behaviors. And that one is probably the hardest one for teams to do, but it needs to be done. And if you have true trust, positive conflict, and true commitment, this becomes oh so much easier. And then here's what we do. Here are the 3 tasks. Highest form of praise, be willing to encourage and destroy ambiguity. So the first one, again, mentioned earlier in this webinar, is accountability as we teach it is the highest form of praise. What you're saying when you hold someone accountable is that they are important and what they're doing is important. If you do not hold them accountable, again, what you're really saying is you don't matter and what you're doing doesn't matter. I'll find someone else. We don't really need you. So again, holding people accountable, highest form of praise. It's a real paradigm shift for most organizations because most people view accountability as someone trying to catch them doing something wrong. No, it's not. It really gets back to, again, saying you are important and what you're doing is important. So let's get this moving. Let's get this going. If you do not have accountability, what manifests are low standards. So if someone's late for a meeting and they're not held accountable, then the next person, they're going to be late for a meeting. Then the next person. And pretty soon everyone's late for meetings. And now you have those low standards. Or if no one picks up the tissue paper that's on the floor, again, you're going to have a messy place all around in the office or all around wherever you're working. So again, if I pick up a tissue that's on the floor, the next person sees me do that, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And all of a sudden, we've got everyone accountable for our entire organization, from the smallest things to the largest things. So again, highest form of praise. When we hold each other accountable, we are really saying, you are important. What you're doing is important. Rick, anything to tag on to that?
I don't think so, but I just, again, I keep going back to it's top-down leadership, being the example, leading by example here. And the meeting thing drives me crazy. It's such a pet peeve. And I see it too. I have certain clients that, that they're always late, and others that are always on time and ready to go. And you definitely, as soon as you let people get away with it, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, it's 5 minutes late this time. Next time it's 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late or whatever. And it manifests itself. I think it continues to get worse. So not only do they not meet the initial accountability requirement, which is, hey, be on the meeting on time, but they'll just you give them an inch and they're gonna take 2 inches and so on and so forth.
Yes, it has that. Coming here from Minneapolis, it has that snowball effect rolling down a hill. It just keeps getting larger and larger. So, and again, when we do have true accountability, we have high standards across the entire organization, across the team. Excellent. So again, be willing to encourage peers. So this is not just the job of the leader. It starts with the leader, but we all have to hold each other accountable. So this is really team effort. Use that positive peer pressure, tolerate that interpersonal discomfort, have those conversations. Again, going back to the fact that it shouldn't be uncomfortable. It's about praising that person and recognizing their value. And that's where we just have to address those situations where it need be, whether it be tardiness in a meeting or it be projects not done. Again, addressing that and holding each other accountable. And one way to approach it is one thing that we teach, and here's a resource for people to use, is what is called the EFA technique. This is empathy, fact, action. And how this carries out is simply this. So if you have someone who didn't finish a project and they come to you and say, oh, this last week, my family situation was so bad and everything got away from me, I'm so sorry. What empathy, fact, action allows is for you to think this through logically and to approach it logically and to say, yep, George, I've been in that situation before. I understand Rick has twins. So Rick will say, yep, I'm going through it right now with my twins, my newborn twins at home. I get it. I get where you're coming from. However, the fact is we have a deadline with this project. We are counting on having this at Friday at 12 noon, and now it's 3 p.m., and we really need this. And then you go to action. So therefore, Rick, the actions going forward is in the future, you're going to use say, do, co. You're going to say what you're going to do what you're going to do, and you're going to communicate if you can. So you're going to let us know ahead of time that you're having troubles. And then right now, what you're going to do is we're going to put this step in, we're going to bring in this person to help you, and we're going to get this done and on my desk by Monday. So we're back on track. So again, empathy, fact, action is just a logical approach to take in situations where we have to hold people accountable, where we need to, where we want to, and where it's important to, of course, in every situation. And it just allows us to think it through so we don't just come roughshod into a meeting expressing frustration and negative emotions. We're under control and we're addressing the specific situation, leading to always, everything always leading to actionable items. Anything to add there, Rick, or thoughts?
No, I like it.
The other tool or resource that we'd encourage is, now going back to strengths, is again with accountability. If someone's really struggling with areas of their work, is here's a fuel engagement matrix tool, which again, what you have your team write down anything and everything they do on a weekly basis, and that takes up more than an hour of time. Takes up more than an hour of time, because that's a significant task, more than an hour a week. So you have them listed out on this matrix. So on the top right, they put everything that they do during the week. And again, it could be a yearly piece that takes up a lot of time. So if it's budgeting and things like that, you can build that in different ways. But again, that's something that really takes more than an hour a week. In the top right, they put everything that fits their strengths. You'll see that on the top bottom. The bottom matrix there, the bottom arrow, is it fits their top 8 strengths. The left-hand side arrow means that they have good experience in it. They've experienced a lot in this activity. All of those go into the top right quadrant. In the bottom right are things that fit people's strengths, but they have low experience. They need to learn more. So again, top right is things fit strengths and high experience. Bottom right, it fits their strengths, but they need to learn more, so they continue to learn. On the left-hand side, the top left, is where you have a lot of experience with it, but it doesn't fit your strengths. So for me, not having analytical, for Rick, not having analytical, getting into the micro details of a budget, not necessarily our favorite thing, but we've done a lot of it, so we can do it. Well, what we want to do in the top left is find a partner to help us. So we can be more big picture oriented, like Rick with his strengths can be a little bit more big picture oriented, and then the analytical person can put in those small details. So partner up, find a person to partner up with. And then the bottom left, anything that goes in the bottom left where we have low experience and it doesn't fit our strengths, that's where we want to look to find others that we could trade things with. So again, as we teach, position descriptions are not static. They can be moved, fit them to strengths, and anything that fits in that bottom left, we try to divvy out to others who maybe say, yeah, that fits my strengths. I would love to do that, but maybe you could do this. And now we've got that synergy in a very objective way to view the tasks, responsibilities that we have, and divvy those up in a much more productive way based upon strengths and experience. Thoughts on that, Rick, or anything there?
I love that tool. Great tool.
Yeah, and there are other pieces to it. We have an explanation sheet with this, and this will be in the resource packet provided with this webinar. All right, bring my screen back to life. So here we go. So now we've got the trust all the way through accountability, and we've finished in the home stretch here, which just takes a couple of minutes as results. So results, true results for a team means that it's always focused on the team. You're willing to make sacrifices. So maybe willing to give up some of your budget for another area of the team, or give up some of your time for another area of the team. So again, sacrifice for the team. Your team has a high reputation for high performance, for high performance. You achieve your objectives consistently. Morale, this is a key one. Morale is significantly affected by the failure. What that means is that if one person fails to achieve the team goals, if you have failed to achieve the team goals, everyone feels it. Everyone feels it. You don't have people saying, well, I did my job. It doesn't matter to me that we failed, but I could care less about what the team did. I know I did my job. Nope, it means that everyone's like, wow, we got to do better. We've got to do better next time. We've got to play a better game. We've got to put together a better game plan. So again, everyone is affected by that. And then we're always willing to point out contributions of others while not drawing attention to ourselves. That's what team results look like. So with that in mind, just one slide here. The 3 tasks are focus on collective results, not just individual. Reward only behaviors and actions that contribute to team results. And develop, share, and review appropriate metrics. That means have an appropriate dashboard, true metrics that help guide and inform everything that you're doing in the company. And that's usually something that's very simple. It's a few metrics, not all of the details. For the most part, not everyone in the meeting needs to know how much we spent on stamps this last month, but we need to know how we're doing on the big picture. Those 6 to 8 key metrics that guide just about everything that we do. So the tools that you'll want to use, again, you'll see some of these in your resource packet there, but just publicly declare your results. Let the whole company know, let your team know, let even the contractors, and Rick, maybe you can speak to that, let every facet know how well you're all doing. That's so powerful. A company scorecard developed, a dashboard, again, what are the key points that we can share and have in front of everyone to keep us informed. Utilize the Clifton strengths again to make sure that we are working as effectively, as efficiently as a team to get the most productive results. And use the poised strategic planning, the EOS strategic planning, to help keep you aligned, focused on those results that you're looking for. Rick, thoughts or comments on the results area there, or anything else up to this point?
Well, so to summarize, we started out looking at the strengths of the team. Now we've looking at the 5 essentials of the team, which we identified the strengths, and now we're moving to the strategic planning part. So again, if I go back to look at the strengths of the team, sort of tells you where you're at. The essentials of the team sort of tells you how to go. How to go where where you want to go, and then the strategic planning is really, here's the direction that we're going, and how long it's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, yeah, the strengths help us see ourselves, the need for partner up opportunities and others through their strengths so positively. The 5 essentials says, now here's how you pull that all together, and then the strategic planning says, and here's how you take it on the road. Absolutely right.
Very good. Thank you so much.
And then just in closing, there's the pyramid. Take that with you to every meeting. And then what do you want your team to look like? Who are you going to be? Which team is yours? In the top right, again, just real quick with alignment there, you have, and Rick, I'll put you on the spot here, Wizard of Oz, you have Dorothy and the 3 characters she was with. What was their united team goal? Where did they all want to get to?
Get to Oz.
Absolutely. And then they all had individual roles in getting to Oz. So in the individual roles and goals, Dorothy wanted to end up where?
She wanted to get back to Kansas.
She wanted to get home, absolutely. And then the lion wanted what?
Lion wanted courage.
Excellent. The Tin Man wanted
He wanted a heart, and the Scarecrow a brain.
Yeah, and they all had independent goals, independent responsibilities, but they all work collectively to get to that end result of getting to Oz. So same thing with our team. We want alignment, we want healthy teams working to our strengths, working together with the 5 essentials, and it's amazing the results that come in. So again, the ready for action, call to action is start with those Clifton strengths, do some one-on-ones as we talked about in the previous session, leading to then this learning session with strengths, as well as this learning session here today, for example, with the 5 essentials, which is a 4-hour workshop where we can come and work with your team to really build this out, train you on those resources, and get you to be the highest producing, results-oriented team that has true trust, positive conflict, commitment, amazing accountability, and again, amazing results through it all. So thank you for your time, everyone. Rick, thank you for this opportunity. And I look forward to future conversations and future opportunities with everyone.
Fantastic, Scott. Great stuff here. We're excited to get to part 3 here with the strategic planning, and it's all starting to come together. So I'm so appreciative of what you bring to the table here, and can't thank you enough.
Well, my pleasure and my privilege. And again, the goal is to help and assist others to be as great as they can be in what they're doing so that they can do the things that they really appreciate and do. And I know that that's part of your model, Rick, is allowing people to be successful so they can do the other things that give them even greater value in their life.
Greater purpose. You know it. You know it. Okay. Yep.